Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of About Abroad, where it's my job to introduce you to people who have built amazing lives for themselves in various foreign corners of the globe. We're talking with expats and thought leaders about moving abroad, remote work, visas, and all the fun and practical knowledge that you need to know to follow in their footsteps. If you've ever dreamed of making a life for yourself overseas, maybe working remotely or embracing long-term travel, retiring or studying abroad, or even just taking a peek inside life beyond your borders, you've landed in the right place. Today's show is a bonus episode. I actually did not have this one planned in the season 1 lineup, but a colleague of mine recently made a post about the Ramadan celebration that takes place in the Muslim faith in his home country in Bangladesh. And it got me thinking how little most of us probably know about this celebration that a huge percentage of the world celebrates. And so I wanted to dive into that a little bit deeper, learn a little bit more about the faith, about the traditions, and what brings people together around Ramadan and what exactly it means to somebody that is celebrating this, looking forward to this all year, every year. And it was great. I learned a lot. I talked with my coworker Modasser about this. He shares what it means for his family and his community. He takes us inside what it seems like a great time in Bangladesh during this month and some of the intricacies of the faith and of the celebration itself. So it was a lot of fun and a great chance for me to get to know Modasser better and learn more about this part of the world and this amazing celebration. So please help me in welcoming Modasser to About Abroad. Modasser, it is so nice to finally meet one of my fellow Duisters that I have not yet had a chance to put a face with the name. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I'm super excited to learn a little bit more about Ramadan from you and just get a chance to know you better. This is really great.
Yeah, thanks for having me. My pleasure to be in this podcast with you. Looking forward to meeting you. So finally it happened.
It's kind of funny that we can be on the same, like, I think for a lot of people that are listening that work in a more traditional office or something, like they're like, how could you not know each other? Like, it's not like our team's that big. We're only 100 people, but this is the nature of remote work sometimes. And you haven't
Yeah.
been with us when did you start at Doist exactly?
So I joined in September
Okay.
last year.
Yeah. So it is kind of crazy. It's taken this long, and without having much in the way of, we don't have any offline events, any opportunities
Yeah.
to get together in real life right now. It's the unfortunate reality, but nonetheless, we're here today, and I'm really excited about the topic that we're going to discuss. A little background for the audience. So the way this conversation came about is Modasser is really great at sharing insights from his perspective in our communication tool Twist with the team. And he recently, at the beginning of Ramadan, shared, just wanted to say, hey, here's a little bit about Ramadan for those of you that don't know. Being it crossed my interest, and I learned a lot just in this short post. And so when I reached out to Modasser and said, hey, would you be interested in sharing this with the About Abroad audience? He was all over it. So I really appreciated that. Looking forward to picking your brain. We're going to go a little deeper on your post here. So let's just start really broad. Let's tell the audience a little bit about where you're located, and what's well, let's start there. Where you're located and the kind of stage that Ramadan is in your local community right now.
Right. So I'm in Bangladesh in a suburb called Kumilla. And we are a Muslim majority country. So Ramadan is a big deal here. So even schedules like office hours change due to Ramadan. And so it's kind of weird for me because I'm working in a place right now that it's not really a Muslim majority place. So in general, it's like, everyone is observing Ramadan here, but in Duist, it's kind of like, it's only me or only a few people. So that's quite a change. So I thought, yeah, so this is something new for me as well. So I should share with others what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you did. So have you in previous stops at other companies or any other previous experiences is this the first time working for a company that where the majority aren't representing or celebrating Ramadan?
It's the second one, I'd say. So I was at Brightcore before. It's a US shop, and but they had a lot of remote workers from different parts of the world, like Jordan and Nigeria. So we had a lot of Muslims there as well. Not the majority, but quite a few. So it was a bit different, but we had a discussion there as well last year.
Ah, interesting. Okay, great. So for the person who like many of us, you grow up, you know what Ramadan is, or maybe you know a little bit about other religious celebrations, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa. You're like, I'm aware of that this takes place around this time, and maybe there's some fasting involved, but you don't really know the core of the story behind Ramadan. Could you give us a quick overview of, like, here's generally speaking, here's what Ramadan is, and here's why we celebrate it, and sort of the timeline, the focal point of it, and everything, just to give some people some context that may have no clue what we're even talking about.
Yeah, right. Ramadan is fasting is one of the five pillars in Islam, so it's quite a big deal. And so there is a completely separate Islamic calendar that the Islamic world follows, and Ramadan is one of the months in that calendar. So we also have 12 months here, and it's a lunar calendar. And so in Ramadan we fast for a whole month. So from Ramadan 1 to Ramadan 30, we fast from sunrise to sunset. So there's no eating or drinking involved in during that time. So that's the crux of it. So that you kind of fast for a whole month for the for during the daylight, and at the end of the month there's a festival called Eid when we stop fasting. And we have two Eids. Muslims generally have two main celebrations. This one is called Eid al-Fitr, the one that's called the Eid of breaking the fast. So we have it at the end of the month. And Ramadan started in Bangladesh yesterday, so it's the second day of fasting for me here today. And one other funny thing is it's a lunar calendar, so the start and the end of the month depends on the sighting of the moon. So you have to see the moon and then you start counting the month. That's why it differs across the world. So some places start a day before and some places start a day after. And other thing about the lunar calendar is it's shorter than the calendar we follow. So Ramadan starts 11 days earlier every year. So it's kind of slowly moves across the calendar for us. So, for example, it started in April 14 this year. It would start around April 4 or 5 next year. So we're slowly moving, for our case, we're slowly moving from summer to winter. So it's kind of easier in winter because the days are short, and summer is pretty hot down here. So it's kind of long days and, very dry stuff.
Oh, that's really interesting. So every year it moves back 11 days. And so
Right.
and so so you might go for several years in a row with Ramadan being during summer in that case.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We have been
wow.
having it in summer for a few years now.
Looking forward to the next decade.
Yeah,
uh,
definitely.
um, and by fasting, no food, no water from sunrise to sunset. So before,
Right.
is it true you wake up early to have a little something to eat, and then you have something after sunset?
Right. So there's two rituals related to fasting. One is that we wake up early in the morning. It's like before sunrise even, and we have a meal. It's called suhoor. And so it's kind of the ritual that you wake up and have something before you start fasting. And then at sunset, we have iftar. So that's when we break the fast. And in between, we're not allowed to eat or drink anything.
Gotcha. Okay. What's the reason behind the fast? Like, what does it signify or symbolize for you?
For me, I think it's both religious and cultural as well. So it's kind of, in terms of religious practices, it's one of the five pillars of Islam. So it's something you must do as a Muslim. and it's, we grew up watching people around us doing this every year, so we kind of take it as, something we do, just something as we do. But as we grow up, we kind of add the spiritual aspect of it as well. So, fasting is really something, it's a different perspective to life. So you
Yeah.
kind of know how it feels to go without food for such a long time. So it's also, interesting to see that, okay, so we can, live a perfectly good life without, food and water for a significant amount of time. And culturally, it's something like, you have a lot of memories growing up with Ramadan. So, suhoor, kids are generally really excited about Ramadan. So they don't really know what suhoor is. So it's like they really want to get up, but most don't get to wake up in that time. But it's something they're very excited about. Same for iftar. So they'd be going around the tables and seeing what's being made and have some of it, and also having the whole family together in times of iftar and having the iftar together. And also, as the Eid is at the end of the month, it's kind of the main festival for Muslims. So we have a lot of shopping around this time. So it's really exciting for kids. So we grow up with a lot of fun memories of this month. It kind of grows into you, and then you start doing it with your kids. So
Yeah. Is Eid like that? I'm trying to imagine this festival at the end. Is it sort of a
yeah,
celebration of the end of Ramadan? Like I'm envision my mind immediately goes to like it's a celebration of like, okay, this has been kind of a tough month and that is over now and now we're going to celebrate, or is it not really connected to the end?
yeah,
I don't
it's
know if the question
connected,
makes sense. It
right?
is, okay.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So yeah, it's so when the moon for the next month is sighted at the end of this month. So at the first day of the next month, we celebrate Eid. That fasting has now ended, and this is kind of a celebration for us. So it's kind of like, Christmas in or New Year's Eve, like in Western places, you can say.
Okay. So now I'm trying to envision what that festival looks like. Like what in your town in Bangladesh, like what does Bangladesh if you ask me what does New York look like
Mhm.
on New Year's Eve, I can describe the scene for you. Can you do the same for Bangladesh on Eid?
Yeah, sure. So the main part of the Eid is, we have a special prayer on the morning of the Eid. So, and it's generally arranged in an open place. So in a big, huge field, you'd say. So people from the city gather in a place, and there's a prayer. And after that, it's more like community event. So people visit their relatives and go out with friends, things like that.
Really nice. Is there an element to the fasting and some of the other traditions? I want to ask actually more about some of the other traditions because I know there's some others mixed in during the month. But is there an element to it like in some religions there's sort of a need to suffer a little bit to be reminded of like what a previous prophet or like somebody else has sacrificed something, so it's time for us to sacrifice something. Is that built into the nature of the fast and some of the other elements and traditions of Ramadan?
Right, yeah. So fasting is something found in more or less all the Abrahamic religions, like in Christianity and Judaism as well.
Yep.
So it when it started, it was more like what the Jews did, and then it was changed a bit and moved to the month of Ramadan. So Ramadan is, so the holy book in Islam is called the Quran,
Mhm.
and it said that the Quran was revelation of the Quran started in the month of Ramadan. So it kind of signifies this month and emphasizes us to get back to the book, read it. So it's also part of Ramadan that we go back to reciting the book a lot in this month. And in terms of suffering, it's also, most practices in Islam are like something you do collectively. And so this is also something to remind you that, hunger is a real challenge for the world, and we should feel how, how it feels to go without food. So now we're doing it at our will. We have food around us, but we're not taking it. But there are people who can't afford, square meals every day.
Yeah.
So it also teaches us to, share what we have. And it's also, a big thing in Ramadan that we share iftar with people around us. We invite friends and families, and also share with less fortunate people around us in places. So if you Google iftar, and then you would see a lot of pictures, in a lot of, so we have mosques. You'd see in mosques there's big gatherings and a lot of people eating together, having their iftar together. So that's also another aspect of Ramadan that uh, in most places you would have. So we're not having this because of the pandemic right now, but in general you would see huge gatherings. People lining up in streets and having dishes set out for them, and everyone eating together. It's really a
Oh,
wonderful thing.
a lot of sharing going on. Like it's there's a philanthropic side to it. It sounds like
Right.
where you're really trying to embrace the community and share and be reminded of like we're all one, connected, this sort of
Yeah.
thing. It's really nice. Are there any other kind of core pillar traditions that take place? I mean, I know there's plenty, but are there any other ones that are especially important for you and your family or your community?
You mean in Ramadan?
Yeah, during Ramadan.
Right. So there's another one. It's called the night prayer. So exclusively in Ramadan, we have a set of prayers after iftar that takes place in masjids, and also people pray in homes as well. So it's a kind of special prayer that you do only in Ramadan. So at nights you spend some time praying, and it's really nice. It's also kind of different taste to Ramadan. So generally it's hard. So it's very long. In mosques, it's around so in some places 1 even 2 hours long. So after fasting the whole day, and then also at night, standing for 2 hours, that's really difficult. But you'd be amazed to see that how many people go to mosques in Ramadan for those prayers.
Yeah. What?
So in general, you'd see that.
No, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. So yeah, I was saying that in general, people are not that religious, or are not that into those practices. But every time when the Ramadan comes, everyone just gets excited and starts going there. It's like something that you know get really excited about when Ramadan comes. It's really nice to see.
Yeah, I'm super this is something that's like really fascinating because you've mentioned this a couple times like the excitement and the enthusiasm and like the little kids get excited. And if I
Mm.
describe to some if I look back at myself as a 10-year-old kid and you say, "All right, little Chase, like this month, you're not going to eat or drink all day. You're going to wake up early and go to bed later, and we're going to go to church and pray for stand and pray for a couple hours." Like, I don't think I would have been like, I don't think excited is the word that I would have used,
Right,
but it sounds like that is so not the case in the Ramadan month,
right.
and I'm very intrigued by this. Like, what is it about the tradition that gets everybody so excited? Because there is, as you mentioned, like there is some suffering involved. There is some. It's like a challenge, but at the same time super rewarding. And I get the community and every. I mean, I can totally understand how the excitement comes to be, but I could also see someone who says like, wow, that sounds really challenging. I'm surprised, for instance, that
Yeah.
kids get really excited about this. So I find it super interesting.
Yeah, me too. So I've tried to think about it, as you said, that when you see it from an outsider's perspective, it's kind of hard to think that it's anything but exciting. So as I said, it's more like I think it's in the childhood that you grow a fond memory of it, because, practices change, people change, and, parents really, I think kids like new things.
Yeah.
So when they say some new practices and new dishes for iftar, and they just attach a fun memory to it. So it's not like we have all the meals together every day, but during iftar the whole family comes together. Even extended families sometimes come together, and there are TV shows sometimes special for Ramadan. So a lot of things, I think, puts together the memory as a really fun thing. That's something we do as a family, and that's what you, when you grow up, you retain that memory the most, so you try to relive it every time.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally get that, and especially in these times, I'm not sure exactly what the situation is in Bangladesh, but like the last year and a half, we've been so isolated from family and friends, and restricted in
Right.
a lot of ways anyway. That the prospect of getting together with your closest loved ones and experiencing this festival that brings us all together around a religion that we all feel very strongly about, like it's got to be very uplifting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's been tough. We're also in lockdown here in Bangladesh right now. But even then, when people are in the house, even with his family, it's something that just makes you feel better that at least we're together.
Yeah.
And the other thing about the community is, as I was saying, that we have large gatherings of iftar meals in different places during Ramadan. So I think this is something we tend to miss out when, you know, in terms of modernity. So we don't live in tribes anymore. So as I think your podcast is about abroad, so
Yeah.
we get into new communities. So I think you'd know that it's hard to feel you belong in the community when you go to a new place. But it's
Yeah.
yeah, so it's something that you can go into any mosque, wherever you are, and sit down for iftar, and no one would say, okay, no one you will ask you about anything. They'll just welcome you. You can sit with them, have the iftar, and leave.
Right. Yeah, that's a beautiful thing about religion, that and very, I mean, you mentioned the word tribe, and I love this word, because like we all do crave a tribe. We crave community,
Right.
and there's like, that goes back to like our roots as humanity. But so we centralize around these different things that bring us together, and when it's especially done in a peaceful, beautiful way that brings us together in a like, in this case, you're coming together to celebrate your religion, and you're also giving back to the community and being reminded of some of the struggles of humanity. Like, this is an amazing way to find your tribe. Really interesting to try to put myself in, like, I'm trying to mentally put myself in Ramadan in Bangladesh, and envision this, like when you say, so you mentioned the word festival earlier. What does that day look like? Is it Eid? Am I pronouncing it correct? The last
Yeah,
day? Yeah.
you're right.
What does that day look like in terms of like everybody, you mentioned a lot of people, and we're talking about non-COVID times. I'm sure it's different
Yeah.
right now, but what does that day look like in
Mm.
terms of like the festival itself? Like, is it sort of a party, or is it more of like intimate family get together, or what is that like?
I think it's a mix of both. So generally, as I said, we have a huge gathering or a prayer in the morning. So people would, especially kids, would wear new dresses. So one thing about Eid is generally people like to wear new clothes or special clothes. So kids are generally excited about their new shoppings and showing it to their friends. And then it's some intimate family time in the mornings, and then maybe in the afternoons there are parties with friends. So yeah,
Yeah.
things like that.
Is there gift
It's
giving
also a
involved?
national holiday.
Yeah. Is it?
Yeah, so it generally the gift giving is generally before Eid. So all throughout Ramadan, we kind of exchange gifts for Eid, and then at Eid we meet each other and spend some time together. Reach out to friends and families abroad or who are not with us.
Mm,
Just get in touch. So and it's a national holiday as well. So offices are closed, businesses are closed. So people are kind of relaxing, enjoying shows.
how about during the month of Ramadan, or does business go as usual typically? Like, I mean, are like nobody's eating, so I'm picturing like restaurants aren't open during the day, I would suppose, or what is that
Right.
like?
Yeah. Yeah. So during Ramadan, the office hours are generally shortened. So we have iftar at sunset. So the idea is to let everyone be at home before sunset. So generally, the office hours are reduced to around 3 p.m., something like 9 to 3 or 9 to 2
Hmm.
in some places. And that's for offices. Yeah, restaurants are generally closed during the day, but they open up for iftars. So people can have iftar at restaurants. There are different packages and offers during Ramadan as well. So that's also, so iftar parties are also a thing. So
Yeah.
people really enjoy in different groups. So you haven't talk to some people in a while or some community in a while. So there are like a lot of community iftars. So maybe there would be a Doist iftar, there would be an async community iftar, things like that,
I see.
or a Python community iftar. These are also very common.
I can envision that those are like after you haven't eaten all day and had or even had anything to drink. You don't even drink water, is that correct?
No,
No. Okay,
yeah,
so no
that's
food or
correct.
drink throughout the whole day, and then you get to sunset, and that has to be a nice little celebration that you look forward to each day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
And so you have these different pockets of communities, like you might go meet up with a group of friends or one side of the family or your coworkers and have your iftar at sunset throughout the month.
yeah. That's generally the things we look forward to. For example, so we have one every year with our school friends. So the people that we went to school together. So it's like a really nice thing because people scattered in different places due to work, business. So life happened.
Yeah.
But generally, people come back to the place before Eid. So at the end of the month, near the end of the month, we have an iftar party with school friends, and that's really nice to catch up with all friends we haven't seen for a long time.
So
That's
nice.
something we really look forward to.
Yeah, I'm really like already reading a little bit about like knowing a bit about Ramadan before our discussion. Like I already had a vision for what it was like, but I missed some of this context, which is why I wanted to have this conversation. Like I had no idea about this aspect of it, and I can totally envision being in your footsteps and like walking up to see friends that you haven't seen in a year, and like having this month where this happens continuously has to be really rewarding. You
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
mentioned something earlier that I definitely wanted to ask about, that like this happens in all cultures and religions, where you have people who are, culturally one way but perhaps not like super religious, like maybe they don't practice throughout the year on a regular basis, but when they're in the West, often say in Christianity, like you don't go to church all year, but then on Christmas Eve you go to church and you do all the rituals, or maybe you something like this, but you still call yourself a Christian. You say whatever. So
Yeah.
is that is there a percentage of the population that falls into that category where like it's really just about Ramadan when Ramadan comes around, and then the rest of the year it's like it's there, but it's not really like a core part of my day to day?
Yeah, absolutely. This is something you even find a lot of memes and trolls regarding this. So just before Ramadan, someone is like this, and that Ramadan one, someone is like all religious, set up, like an angel. So yeah, it's something a lot of people get into starting to practice some stuff, and whatever they can afford or they feel like. Even when some people don't fast, they generally enjoy the festivities around it. So they would attend iftar or even hold iftars even if they're not fasting. So
I see.
there's a whole cultural aspect to it that even people that don't really practice that seriously, uh, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
love it.
Makes sense. I mean, you expect that. Like, obviously, not 100% of the population is going to follow along, but it sounds like the majority of the Muslim population there will celebrate Ramadan in some way
Yeah.
or another. It's very very much so a part of the day to day life during this 1 month period.
Right, yeah, and also it's really fascinating to see other cultures as well. I know, thanks to internet, like Muslims have a lot of cultures actually across the world.
Yeah.
So it's really different in maybe in Turkey or maybe in Morocco than what it is in Bangladesh or in the Indian subcontinent. So
I
it's
was going to
also
ask you this.
fun for
Yeah,
us.
I find that super interesting. So yeah, what is a core difference that you might see between what the way it's celebrated in Bangladesh and any other place that comes to mind?
Yeah, so I think the core rituals are the same, but in terms of cuisines or food, or there are in some places there are some different practices, and how things are done. There are a lot of differences. So, for example, in in the Western setups, like in countries like US and Canada, so there are small pockets of Muslims. So they generally, what they do is the whole community has iftar together at the mosque, at the community mosque. So my brother is in Canada
Hmm.
with his family. He tells us that they generally go to the mosque and have iftar with the family and all the community there, because it's a small community. So it's not like they're having iftar in their home like we do.
Mm.
It's more like everyone gathers together and then has iftar there. So that's something different. I think in Turkey, it's also a bit different in terms of, so they have huge gatherings in all the mosques and in front of the mosques, I guess. That's something that in our parts we organize ourselves in the communities, but I think it's done everywhere in some places.
I see.
So there are subtle differences like that. And also the food. I think the one of the good things is the food, that it's the food for Ramadan is very different in different parts of the world, in the Muslim world.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I would love to dive into the food more. I'm kind of like I, a true foodie would probably laugh at me by calling myself a foodie, but I do really enjoy exploring cultures and new countries through like the food and drink, and just like learning more about the food, because so much is centered around food. Like so much
right.
of this core tradition in your culture is tied to food, and this is like a red thread that ties to multiple cultures and countries around the world. So I find it really interesting, and I just like to eat. What's the best dish for you? Is it special food during iftar and during Ramadan, or is it like for us at for instance Thanksgiving? Like you're going to have a turkey at Thanksgiving, and Christmas is like a chicken normally. Are there foods that are typically tied to iftar and Ramadan?
Yeah, so I think the one food that's typically tied to Ramadan or iftar is dates.
Mm.
So everyone has dates to break the fast and then goes on to other meals. So date is kind of the common thing across cultures in the Islamic world. So everyone has dates at iftar, and then it's kind of depending on cultures, and it's kind of I was thinking about this, that this question had come up, and because we don't have good names in English for most of the items we have, so it's really difficult to, to tell you that. I have a task set up for me to take some photos and share in that thread, so I
Please
can
do. Yeah, I would love to see
bring it.
that. That's great. Yeah, I became a vegetarian a few years ago, and so some of my traditions, my U.S. Western traditions, have been messed up because of this. Because so much of it revolves around meat. The turkey at Thanksgiving is the main one. That was a real shocker for my family when we tried to do that the first year. But anyway, it can be limiting. Yeah, this has been really helpful and really interesting for me, Modasser. Like, thank you so much for sharing more about the culture. And I don't know if there's anything else that you. I have one more question I want to ask you before we go. But do you have anything else before I get to that? What you want to share about in life in Indonesia and Bangladesh, and in during Ramadan, about the Muslim culture, faith, culture, anything else that you want to tack on that we haven't covered yet?
I think we covered most things. So I think the spiritual aspect is another thing that kind of gets left out in the discussions. So I think it's kind of a really good spiritual boost to us practicing or observing these rituals. So it's not like something you do like mechanically.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something you do with very mindfully, and when you're not eating the whole day, it's kinds of, when you are have an empty stomach, it's kind of like really makes you think clearly. And it's, I think, the spiritual boost that we get from Ramadan is something I look forward to. It's something I have come to appreciate, as I've grown as a person myself. So I think that's one aspect is hard to describe, but
Yeah.
something you feel.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Like when you're young, you're probably not thinking about that. When I was a little kid celebrating Christmas, there was the spiritual aspect is not really what's on your mind. You're
Right.
thinking about the presents and Santa Claus and the hanging out with your family and having fun. And as you mature and grow up and you start to appreciate some of the non tangible aspects, I think it gets even that much more. powerful for you, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right. Absolutely.
that's a great way to start to wrap this up. Thank you again. I wanted to ask the last question. If you can leave us with a few of the common pleasantries, phrases that are used during Ramadan. So for us, it would be like Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Feliz Navidad. I know a couple of these, but what are some common phrases that are used during Ramadan?
So at the start of the Ramadan, we kind of say Ramadan Kareem, as I posted in our thread, and then also Ramadan Mubarak. Mubarak is a word that kind of like the merry word, Merry Christmas,
Okay.
as you say. So for Eid, we also use Eid Mubarak.
Okay.
So
So like Merry
that's kind
Merry
of
Eid sort of, and Merry Ramadan. And what does
yeah.
Ramadan Kareem mean?
It's like it's not like that. It's has a specific meaning. It's like Ramadan is upon us, and it's a generous month of generosity. So
Ah,
we're welcoming it.
we're welcoming it in.
And there's also like it's called Ahlan wa Sahlan.
Ooh, what's that
We
one?
say so. It's like when somebody comes to your house, you say Ahlan wa Sahlan. So it's like a greeting, a welcome, and feel yourself at a home.
Ah, okay. I love it. Can you say it again for me?
Yeah, it's Ahlan wa Sahlan.
Okay, I won't try, and I don't want to butcher it on this. We're recording. Once I hit stop on this, I'm going to try.
No, you should try. It should be a good
Yeah,
uh,
let's do it again. Let me hear it.
part
Let
of
me
the
hear
time.
it
Yeah,
again. Let me hear it again. I'm going to try.
it's Ahlan wa Sahlan.
Ahlan wa hasalan.
Yeah, it's close. Yeah.
Well, more or less. Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much. We did this on short notice. You were kind enough to agree. And I love that you're sharing more about your culture and the religion and educating those of us that are over in the shadows and haven't taken the time to fully understand the details of what goes on in all corners of the world. And that's part of what we want to explore on this show. So it's really fun for me. And again, appreciate it very much.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. Thanks for having me. And, it's been really a new experience for me as well. So, it's down here. It's like, what's there to talk about? We all know that stuff, but it's like, it's new experience for me as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you. I will be sure to brush up on my on these phrases, and next year when Ramadan rolls around 11 days earlier, I'll be ready to welcome you into Ramadan with Ramadan Kareem.
Yeah, cool. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, Modasser.
Yeah, thanks, Jess.
Thanks for tuning in today from wherever you are in the world. Once again, I'm Chase, and this has been another episode of About Abroad. You can visit aboutabroad.com to get our latest updates and listen to past episodes, or find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, really anywhere you get your podcasts. On that note, if you enjoyed the show, feel free to subscribe, and if inclined, leave a few stars and a review. It's truly, truly appreciated and will help more wanderers just like you find us. Until the next time, adios from España.